Hi guys, and welcome back to the show. Today we are building a little crosscut jig for my Titan Tracksaw, so let's not wasting more time and get right down to it. For this build I need a base plate, a front and a back fence, two supports for the rail and a catch on the bottom to rest against the workbench. I started by cutting down the fences and catch on my DIY table saw, and I used the John High style push shoe for the first time in a long while. I did not feel comfortable with this after getting used to the push sticks, so I changed back to using them. I then used my tiny miter station, the one we named the Doomsday Box, to support the workpieces, and I put up a stop block that I secured using my 3D printed clamps. I used a part of an old shelf as the base plate, and then I referenced the front of the fence of the front of the shelf, as that is a factory edge. The back fence is not that critical, as it will not be used to rest the workpiece on, only the rail. A nomad's projects. The plywood offcuts I used for the fences is low-grade pine or fir, and some of them broke apart, so I filled in some glue between the layers before screwing the back fence in place. You may have heard someone mention that a woodworker never can have too many clamps. And here I got to use my tiny 3D printed ones as well. Again, using my DIY table saw, I cut down another plywood offcut to use as rail supports. And I cut them to length on my miter saw. Making sure the supports were at a perfect 90 degrees and carefully watched over by Baby Vader, I screwed them in place. Fixing the back support was super fiddly because it has to be perfectly square with the front support. If not, this jig is completely useless. I quickly realized that a square for the rail will be high on my wish list. I had built the rail supports too tall as the motor was catching on them, so using my tenon saw I cut them shorter. I adjusted the saw to 20 mm and made a test cut on the jig. So it's time to start testing out the jig, and I made the first cut on some 18mm plywood scraps. Here you can see that the workpiece is slipping a bit, so I'm considering putting some grip tape on the base plate. Made another test cut on some 5mm plywood and then on a piece of an old shelf. I think this is laminated fir or pine. And just to try it out, I did a scoring cut first and then cut to the full depth. It was time to put the jig to work, and I started cutting down some red temp plywood panels for my mobile miter station build. This plywood has a veneer that is very thin and brittle, so I made sure to use the scoring function, but I must tell you, I really didn't like working with this plywood. To try if I could cut pieces that are thicker than the fences, I did a test on a 2x4 offcut. To make this cut, you have to rest the further end of the rail on an equal sized piece. The supports were perfect height for the 2x4, which is more or less the maximum depth of cut of the saw. I have to be honest here, this was purely by chance. By the way guys, a huge shout out to Peter Millard, who inspired this build and my purchase of this tracksaw in the first place. Check out his video series, the Tracksaw Workshop. You'll find a link in the video description. And just to make sure, the cut was perfectly square. But again, that is it for today. I really hope you enjoyed the video guys. If you did, please remember to leave a thumbs up. If this is your first visit to my channel, please consider subscribing. If you want to support me, there is a link to my Patreon as well as Amazon links to products I use and recommend below. Cheers guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.